So while we are awaiting more developments in the Ripple versus the SEC case, I wanted to bring to your attention something that the Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse recently said about NFTs, and it's probably not what a lot of people think. So in this video, I'm going to tell you what he said and why he actually backed it up, because Ripple is actually involved with one of those projects. Also, I want to talk about what Bitcoin is doing right now, because as you can see on the screen behind me, it had one of the strangest days I've ever seen Bitcoin have on a chart. So we're going to talk about what some of the speculation is regarding Bitcoin's price action, some of the altcoins, some of the outflows, the inflows, and what institutional buyers are doing with Bitcoin. Because according to some of the largest financial sectors in the world, it's about to become global. Hey everyone, my name is Randy. Welcome back to the Late Night Grind. And right now on this channel, we're covering the Ripple versus the SEC case, but I'm also covering cryptocurrency news, investment markets, and personal finance. So if any or all these topics interest you, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the Late Night Grind community. Also, if you do three things, I'd really appreciate it. Smash the thumbs up button, watch this video all the way to the end, and of course, check out my Patreon, link in the description below. All right, guys, let's jump into it. So over the last 2 days, Bitcoin has gone on a little bit of a run. It actually broke out of a resistance level that it's been at for pretty much the last 3 weeks. It's now somewhere around 32,000, depending on when you're watching this video. And in fact, it broke out that number twice in the past 2 days. It hadn't previously been at that high of a level since May 10th. That's almost 3 weeks ago. And I was looking at some of the stats from Glassnode as well as a couple other on-chain statistical sites. And according to what they're saying about what was happening last week, which kind of built up to this week, was specifically the inflows of money that is coming into cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and some of these altcoins. And some of the most notable ones were, of course, Bitcoin. That always leads the way. But in fact, the inflows into Bitcoin were pretty large, about 69 million for last week. Now, some of its largest weeks, of course, are well over $100 million. And its biggest week, well over $1 billion, was nowhere near that. But nonetheless, it was doing well and leading the way. Now, a couple of the other ones caught my attention, mainly Ethereum, because typically, as you see inflows into Bitcoin, Ethereum kind of matches it, or at least in terms of percentages. Well, Ethereum has been losing the large majority of this year on its weekly inflows. The last week, Ethereum had another $20 million of outflows, which means it lost approximately $20 million, not of value, but of actual money, leaving the Ethereum cryptocurrency. But as one of the analysis that I was reading pointed out, another one kind of came along and scooped up some of that money. That being an Ethereum competitor, which is Algorand. Now, I don't know if you are on Twitter, if you follow some of the crypto news. Algorand was actually making some big headlines last week. In fact, I saw its headlines on some of the mainstream cryptocurrency news sites, as well as all over Twitter, because the price was simply growing, and now we know why. Because some of those inflows were huge, $20 million in a week. It was the biggest altcoin surge that we had last week, of course, compared to Bitcoin. So this, along with some of the other news, has a lot of people thinking that, well, this $32,000 level for Bitcoin could be the local bottom, and it could be going up from here. Now, that's not everybody saying it, but there's some big institutions that are trying to, at least attempt to, allude to the fact that they want this to be the bottom, probably because they've already bought the dip. Namely, JP Morgan and Fidelity. Now, those two companies make up some of the biggest financial institutions in the entire world. Fidelity, who holds about $4.5 trillion of assets under management, recently announced that they are doubling the size of their headcount in their digital asset team. That's big news, and you're only going to see that more and more. And I think I remember over the past couple of months, several other large financial firms basically announcing the same thing. Okay, so now what's JP Morgan doing? Well, JP Morgan now seeming to flip-flop and be more crypto-friendly. Now, if you remember back several years ago, JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon said Bitcoin was a scam. Well, now they're basically going all in, because JP Morgan just said cryptocurrency and Bitcoin is replacing real estate as their favorite alternative asset. That is actually some very big news. Now, the other thing JP Morgan was making headlines for recently, in fact, just this morning, it came out that they are working with a central bank in Singapore to work on a DeFi lending platform, or a DeFi lending protocol. So in conjunction with central banks, they are working on a borrowing and lending protocol that would be using CBDCs. It's definitely something to keep an eye on, because when you see JP Morgan diving into the DeFi space, that should raise some eyebrows. All right, so now let's talk about what Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, has to say about NFTs and their actual use. And of course, and what he says about them is that they're undervalued. Now, to some of you, if you don't follow this channel, or if you don't follow Ripple or the XRP cryptocurrency, the XRP ledger and its ecosystem, you might not know that NFTs are recently becoming a big thing on the XRP ledger. Several NFT marketplaces have recently popped up. And now, Brad Garlinghouse was recently did an interview with Cointelegraph, and he was asked about NFTs. And he said, actually, if you remember my previous comment, he said, I believe NFTs were underhyped or undervalued. Well, he basically backed up these statements by saying he thinks that NFTs will really see some huge adoption once investors see how important and how usable NFTs can actually be. Now, of course, he did say there's a lot of places in the NFT marketplace that are still really, really hyped. Of course, you have the Bored Ape Yacht Club, but many things outside of that aren't doing as well, especially when Bitcoin and the crypto markets and really any financial market is in a bear market, consolidation market, whatever you want to call it. However, Brad Garlinghouse recently pointed to what he calls an important use case in what NFTs could be put to use for. And what he mentioned was the tokenization of carbon credits. And in fact, putting together a marketplace where carbon credits could actually be purchased, and it would be on a transparent public blockchain where everybody would have access to it. He says something like carbon credits would be an amazing use case for an NFT, basically. In other words, bigger companies would have to own these NFTs, these carbon credits, in order to allow a certain amount of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and it would be backed up by the value of their NFTs that they have, and they could only release a certain amount of carbon depending on how much carbon credits they actually hold. So the reason that he actually mentioned this is because that company recently got a grant from Ripple for I believe a few $1 million to actually build out this project. I think he's just trying to generate a little bit of buzz, a little bit of publicity for this company, because if you remember back in the winter, Ripple gave over $250 million, I believe they doubled it now, as a grant program to people seeking to build out new technologies using the XRP ledger. So this is one of those projects, and the fact that they're going to be using NFTs on a carbon credit marketplace, yeah, that's something that goes beyond just pretty JPEGs and having some speculative value. And he's right. I think they are underhyped if you actually think about the use cases that go beyond a JPEG. So as we wait until June 7th, which is the date in which the SEC has a deadline to respond to John Deaton's wanting to intervene and become that credible expert on XRP holders and their mindset as to what they were thinking when they bought XRP. Well, the SEC is against that. They have till June 7th to send something to the judge and actually object to it. So we're going to be waiting with a popcorn in hand, waiting for that, because of course we then get to hear what Ripple's response is. And that is something that I can't wait to hear. If you don't follow John Deaton already on Twitter, I'll put a link in the description below, so you can do that, as well as follow me on Twitter as well. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end, for smashing that thumbs up button. And as always, I'll see you guys on the next video.